I'm joined today with a special guest, Peter Lucas, as we're going to preview the 49ers' third game of the season against the Denver Broncos on Sunday night and talk a little bit about the Kyle Shanahan stuff and the Jimmy stuff going on. So let's get right into it.
Gonna throw it, wide open, touchdown, 49ers! And to Draymond. Hurry! Watch Stafford go deep, and Rodgers were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones, and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome into the Polo Show once again. We're going to be previewing Week 3 against the Denver Broncos. I'm joined today by Peter Lucas. Peter, thanks for joining on, man. Where can we find you on the socials also?
Hey, I really appreciate you having me on, and especially I'm sitting here in my car right now, and but it's a pleasure being on, and I'm stoked to talk 49er football. But hey, everybody can find me on the Niner Fanatic podcast on YouTube, as well as anywhere you can get your audio podcasts. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter where you get it, just get it. And I'm also on Twitter mostly. But I'm also trying to get on Instagram. But Twitter is, I think my handle's on the bottom, and then Instagram I'm on at It's True 54, and then I'm starting to try and do some TikTok stuff too. So I'm putting it out there for you. All you got to do is go get it.
All right, sounds great. Well, let's get right into it. I think the first thing I definitely want to address, and we were just talking about this backstage. There's been some Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy G stuff going on. We'll talk more about Shanahan later, but basically Jimmy G's basically saying that he wants to free up the offense. He wants to be able to have more freedom, and he basically hasn't been able to play like that since 2017. And then Grant, which, have your opinion about Grant all you want, but he asks real good questions to people, and he asked Kyle about what Jimmy said. And basically Kyle was saying, I don't call games differently, so I'm not sure what that was about, but you should go and ask Jimmy. It's a lot of like he said, she said stuff going on. And I remember something like that last year in the playoffs, and they were talking about one of his injuries. Basically, Kyle was saying like it wasn't impacting the way he played, and I remember Jimmy saying it was impacting every single throw. So these guys just seem to not be on the same page. What are your thoughts on the whole Shanahan, Kyle stuff, disagreeing? And do you feel, I know you're talking about you had a take on Shanahan, do you feel that he is kind of handicapping the play a little bit for his quarterbacks?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know how anybody could think that these guys are on the same page at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Why? Why? If I'm Jimmy, just think about it. If I'm Jimmy, I don't care. I'm saying whatever I want to say at this point. Like, what are you going to do? Fire me? Because you already tried to do that, and it didn't work out too well for either party. But the reality is this: I've had this theory for months, and honestly for over a year now, that Kyle is very strict about what he wants to see out of his offense. And I really think that not so much that he's been hampering Jimmy, but I think honestly that he's telling him where to go, who he wants it to go to, and Jimmy just needs to fit it in there. I think Kyle thinks that his system is infallible, and that as long as you just do what I tell you to do, it'll work out perfectly. Now, with that being said, I think that people are I know we're probably going to talk about Trey later, but I think that it all goes together. It includes Trey. And I think that's a big reason why we are where we are right now. But I love that Jimmy is speaking out about it, because I think he's got to make he's in a contract year, and he's got to tell teams, hey, this isn't all necessarily that I can do. I think I can do more, but I feel like I've been hampered here, and I don't blame him, and I fully expect him to do whatever he wants out on the field. I don't think he's necessarily going to follow Shanny's game script. So I think that we could see some fireworks on this weekend. I'm stoked for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. What's up, Tanya and Brandon? How's it going, y'all? Yeah, no, I think there's truth to both sides. I think that there's definitely been times where Jimmy's been able to have the chance to push the ball downfield. He just doesn't see it, especially like Brandon Ayuk. But I will say I hope that, because he was targeting Ayuk quite a bit in the Seahawks game. I was there, got to meet a lot of people, and it was super fun. If he's recognized after last year, hey, this guy gets open a lot in man coverage and looks his way a little more, I think that's going to be really good, especially because I think Brandon Ayuk's developing into probably he is their best receiver on the team. Debo's a better player, but Brandon Ayuk is their best receiver. So I think being able to spread it around more is going to be really helpful. But listen, Jimmy's not been the most successful guy pushing the ball downfield. So I could see why Kyle maybe does try to hamper that a little bit, maybe does try to, pump the brakes on how much he wants Jimmy to throw the ball. But at the same time, I feel like you don't want things super scripted where like you're just so stubborn to the point where it's your system to the end, where you have to understand that sometimes plays aren't going to go exactly the way you envision it. Teams are going to adjust. And if Jimmy is at a point where he's saying, well, I can't throw the ball anywhere else, or really whoever's back there, if it's Trey Lance or Jimmy, that can be detrimental. But I also see both sides. It's just weird how they're just not on the same page. Like, I'm not going to say this is the reason that, Jimmy's not been able to produce in certain areas of the game, but it is just weird because you see them not being on the same page. I will say, though, going into free agency next year, maybe he does kind of want to shift the narrative a little bit to like, hey, the reason I'm not producing is because this dude's doing questionable things. I'm not able to showcase my full potential. I could so see him doing that because it does feel like a bit of a chess match has been going on in terms of Jimmy knew he was on his way out last year. So maybe it does behoove him to say stuff like, yeah, my injury is impacting every throw, where Kyle's like, no, it's not. And then this year, Jimmy's like, oh, well, it felt more free. That's why I looked okay. And I wish we'd do that more. I haven't been able to do that for 5 years. Then Kyle's like, that's not true. It's really funny. But it's just a headache. And clearly, like, I know people have thrown out the scenarios where even if they won the Super Bowl, Jimmy would come back. I don't think so. I think that both sides clearly know, like, they just have to part ways when this is done. It's great he's here, though, just because of the situation they're in terms of wanting to compete for a championship. They're still in position to do that. But let's dive into some preview for the actual game this Sunday. So we're going up against the Denver Broncos, a familiar opponent in Russell Wilson in his new uniform for his new team. What do you think are 3 keys to victory? And who do you think needs to step up? How do you expect the game to pan out? What are you expecting this Sunday, and what do you think needs to happen?
Well, I mean, the number one key to victory is our defense, and that they put the whole Russ is the boogeyman thing to sleep. Like, actually, if I never hear the word Russ is the boogeyman again, like, it'll be too soon. I'm so tired of that narrative. I think that they put that whole thing to bed. I think that this defense is for real. I think that this defensive line is licking its chops to get at Russ, and it's so I'm stoked on the defense. I think that they're gonna do some pretty exciting things this weekend. So that's my number one. Like, I just know that the defense is gonna be exciting. My number 2 probably would be the running game. I'm so interested to see who is gonna get a majority of the carries. I'm a Masonite. Like, I want to see Jordan Mason get at least 10 carries in this game. Like, I just want it.
Get 1 carry.
Like, no, I want 10. I'm greedy. Like, I am greedy, and I want 10 in this game. I'm tired of knowing that this kid has talent, and they keep rolling out mid Jeff Wilson every week. Like, I'm like, we're done with that. Like, and we riot, honestly, if it's Jeff Wilson and Marlon Mack. I'm I'm going to be upset. But that's my key is of course the running game. The last key is just what we were just talking about. What Jimmy do we see this weekend, and like does Jimmy goes full on rogue and just does what he wants out there? Because what is Kyle going to do if he does well and he's going off script? Like what is Kyle going to take him out? No, he's not going to do that. Like so it's. I'm here for it. I think those are the three keys.
Okay. Yeah, I got some similar ones that you had and actually wrote about my three keys. So my first one is the running game. They got to step up with a thin backfield. You mentioned it, Jordan Mason. I want to see him get opportunity. I want to see him get a good amount of carries. I do feel like he'll get a touchdown. I think we will finally see. It would be egregious to just have Marlon Mack out there with Jeff Wilson. I mean, it would be a very Shanahan thing to do, but come on, man. Like, this dude had such a good preseason. He earned a roster spot for a reason. Give him some carries. But no Elijah Mitchell, no TDP. You got to run the football to keep Russ off the field and keep the chains moving. You know, at the end of the day, that's what you need to do. My thing is, I don't want to put the fate of the game in the hands of Jimmy Garoppolo. You know, I think that's going to be the case all season long for this team is how can we control the pace and tempo of every single game where we don't have to put it in the hands of Jimmy G? Because that's clearly what they want to do all the time. I mean, you can go back to 2019. They won the NFC Championship game only throwing the ball 8 times, you know. So it's not like that's something new. It's definitely something that's going to be the case this year, but it is interesting with no Elijah Mitchell for 2 months and now no TDP for a while, how they're going to be able to do that. What will help is George Kittle's finally playing. He's going to make his debut. So just the ability as a pass catcher, the threat, and also, of course, his blocking should help out. But it's interesting just because this is like the first, I want to say, real test that both these teams are getting because both teams have faced inferior rosters the first 2 games of the season. If you look at, the running game, that also means the offensive line is to play well. And there's a big difference between playing the Seattle Seahawks and going up against Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory. And also something that I think a lot of people are forgetting is there's some familiar faces on that defense that are familiar with the Kyle Shanahan offense, especially when Jimmy G's under center. And that's DJ Jones, one of the best run stoppers. And that's K'Wan Williams in the slot. So it's going to be really interesting to see because definitely all week they've had to have been spilling the beans on stuff on Kyle and the offense and what they tend to do just to get any advantage they possibly can. Where they should have the huge advantage though is coaching. I know a lot of people think Hackett is a complete joke, and my worry though, the reason that I put such an emphasis on the running game is because the Broncos have had 25 penalties their first 2 games. So I don't know if I'm going to expect that to continue for 3 straight games. I don't expect them to give up 100 yards for 3 straight games. You got to make sure you're keeping that clock ticking. You're controlling the pace of the game, and running the ball is just the way you're going to do that. You don't want to put the hands in the ball, Jimmy. My second key to that is kind of like what you said, defense, and it's specifically stopping the running game for them. So the Broncos right now, and it's really early, and like I said, they played really inferior opponents, but right now they're ranking 7th in the NFL in yards per carry. It's about 5 yards a carry, 4.9. So if you can put a stop to that, you're going to force Russ to cook, and we know how that usually goes, and he's going to have to air it out, and Jerry Jeudy's probably not going to play. He didn't practice at all this week, so I really would doubt that he goes out there. So if you're forcing Russ to be in a position where you have to let Russ cook or let Russ ride, I don't know whatever the hell it is in Denver anymore, if you're forcing him to do that without Jerry Jeudy, I think you're in good shape. You got a great front 7. You got a great pass rush. He's been under a lot of pressure this year, and the Niners have been getting a lot of pressure of their own. I think that's the formula to victory on defense, at least. So don't let them just start running the ball down your throat. Don't have one of those weird games where you lose the rushing game battle, because both teams have run the ball pretty well the first 2 games. But like I said, Bears and Seahawks and Texans. Let's see the real test. And my third key is Russell Wilson, the boogeyman. No Russ magic. So I was looking at it, and it's actually really crazy. Russ's career record against the Niners is 16-4. And since 2014, he's 14-2. Since 2014.
That's just crazy.
So if there's a game where Russell Wilson finally finds his rhythm, finally gets out of this funk, and the Broncos stop being so sloppy, wouldn't it just make sense for Russell Wilson to have that game against the damn Niners? I made this joke with Jesse because he's a Portland Trailblazers fan. I told him, I was like, this dude is the Steph Curry to our Damian Lillard. Like, this guy just always figures us out. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. It could be last year with the worst team in the NFC West, and they still sweep us for the season. So they got to make sure no Russ magic happens. That's why I kept making an emphasis on keep him off the field as much as possible. I don't want a Sunday night game where we do good the first half, we take our foot off the gas in the second, Russ takes the lead with like 3 minutes to go, and now we have to march Jimmy on the field to go win the game. You don't want a situation like that.
No,
you want to just put your foot in the ground and keep going for all 4 quarters. I'm tired of seeing this guy beat us under every single circumstance. Take care of business. So those are my 3 keys, and someone that I think needs to step up. So I don't know if you've been following this, but I don't think Eric Armstead has practiced at all this week.
No, he's not going to play
either, so he's probably not going to play. So whoever fills in on the interior, they got to step up, because I know Armstead hasn't really popped off the screen for a lot of people, but he is a big impact player on the interior. Someone's going to have to step up there in the defensive line.
I think it's going to be Kevin Givens.
Run. I think so too. I think it's going to be Kevin Givens. So whoever's in there, and they have a lot of depth, just got to make sure you're stopping that run. But I do expect a really physical game. I expect a really physical game. I think there's going to be some big hits. I think it's going to be both teams are trying to ground and pound. Niners just got to win that physical battle. But what do you think the Niners can also do to make sure they put an end to that Russell Wilson boogeyman stuff?
I mean, it's just what I was just saying a little earlier, and I think what you kind of alluded to. It's the defensive line has to get home. And I think that Russ has definitely lost a step as far as like on his scrambles, and he doesn't seem to be able to get away as easily as he used to. It used to be he almost looked like a little slower version of Kyler Murray out there, and he was just this jitterbug that would like go all over the place and duck under tackles and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think that he has that in him anymore. And but I think that in order to just kind of crush that narrative, the defensive line's going to have to just go out there and sack him a whole bunch of times, and they're going to have to get hits on him. But that's the beauty of this game, is I feel like they're going to be able to do that. I think they're going to be able to do that. I'm not afraid of Denver's running game at all, like against this defensive line and these linebackers. And you have to put in Hufanga in that mix too, because he's great against the run. I just don't see it. Like I don't think that. You just have to crush that. You have to crush it early. You have to get to him early, and Kyle honestly has to. He's been hearing the stories about and all the narratives about how he's very conservative, and we just finished talking about his game script and how he has really good play, and he calls really nice play calls, but it's a little, once he gets a lead, he kind of just takes his foot off the gas, and he kind of just goes into vanilla mode, and he's got to just do the same things the whole game. What is he afraid? I just wonder, what is he afraid of? Is he afraid of putting it on tape so now that other teams are going to be ready for all of the things that he rolls out? I just don't think that should be an issue ever. I think you go out there to win, and you come up with new wrinkles and you come up with new ways to call plays. But I never think you should be afraid of putting your best plays out there. And sometimes I think Kyle just doesn't want to put all of his best plays out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that, Kyle's obviously a great coach, and we're going to get into all that. And Pie Nor's in here. I know he had some stuff to say about the whole 49er organization, so it's great to see Pie Nor in here. So we'll get into all that in a few minutes. But taking his foot off the gas, that's been the number one criticism I definitely can give him. Especially in the second half of big games. We can totally see that all the way back to the Atlanta days. People have been questioning him about that. So it's fair to question what bugs me about Shanahan is when people ask him about what he does, he basically just goes up to the podium and says, like, well, I know more about football than you. Like, dude, but it's a fair question. Like we can all see the results. We can see what goes on in the games. And that's why, honestly, I understand the Debo stuff too, right? And I was going to ask you, how much do you expect Debo to be used as a ball carrier with TDP and Mitchell out now? Because my thing is, I think Debo was basically what he said in the beginning of the year when he's at the press conference, that he's willing to do whatever he can to help the team win. A lot of people get really specific of like, I don't want Debo to get this number of carries, whether it's like 6, 7, or 8, whatever. I'm honestly not opposed to him getting more carries at this point if it's just going to help them win games. If that's Kyle's best stuff, if it's his best available option, if Debo's willing to do it, I don't mind giving him bigger workload in the backfield. I honestly don't mind. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I actually think Debo's going to be used quite a bit in the backfield this Sunday because I just feel like even though we know we want Jordan Mason to play, and I think he will, there's just something about Kyle not trusting young guys on his team, especially guys that like that running back position. He didn't even want to play TDP last week 1. So I think Debo's going to get quite a bit of a workload these next few weeks.
And it's really weird, honestly, like because Elijah Mitchell was a rookie last season, and
Right.
I mean, and he got rid of the whole sharing carry, the carry share.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was only letting Elijah Mitchell. He was running Elijah Mitchell into the ground. He's gonna do the same thing to Debo. He's gonna do the same thing to anything that he finds that that can help them win. He's gonna run it into the ground. It's really weird the way he does that with only some things, and like other things he won't keep doing as the game goes on. I don't know. It's always been a weird thing with Shanny, and like I said earlier, it's kind of like he doesn't want to show his hand entirely, but he's going to keep giving Debo the ball up the middle. He's going to keep giving Trey the ball up the middle, and he likes putting. I shouldn't say he likes. He tends to put his best players in harm's way. I don't know what that's about. Like why he feels the need to always do that, and everybody's going to say, "Oh, well, that's football." Like, no, not in those ways. And maybe that's the reason why people call Kyle a genius, because when it works, it looks awesome. But when it doesn't work, and those guys get hurt and guys go down, then you have to be able to question him in those situations. And I think that now people are starting to question it, and because we've got a big enough sample size, and now he's getting his ego. I feel like you're seeing it on full display. You can see it in the interviews. He does not like being questioned at all. And it's a really interesting. It's just a really interesting. It's gonna be. This is only week 3. We got a whole rest of the season to go, and he's already looks like he wants to kill every member of the media.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's gonna be a long season, and he already wants to kill Jimmy, like we talked about earlier. So if they're gonna go at it all year, it's gonna be really entertaining for Niner fans, as long as they keep winning, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. He goes up there and he just gives off huge, I'm the smartest guy in the room vibes.
Oh my God, it's great.
And it's so arrogant. And listen, he's great at what he does, but at the end of the day, for any profession, if you get to a certain point where you're great at what you do, and you get to a point where mentally you feel like you can't be questioned, you absolutely should be questioned at that point.
Exactly.
Now, let's dive into some of that Shanahan stuff. That's a perfect segue, because he's been getting a lot of criticism, and I was at the game, so believe me, I saw this firsthand. And we're after the Trey Lance injury. We're now on Revenge Tour Part 3, and I can't believe that is the case, because I used to joke about it, and now it's actually come true. So I think I need to stop saying stuff, because I think I'm just influencing the world a little too much. But what are your thoughts on that whole situation with Trey Lance running in with the QB powers up the middle? I know a lot of people have different opinions on it. And just how do you feel like they've handled the whole development process with Trey Lance in general, and how do you expect them to continue that process?
So I have a pretty unique view, kind of take on this whole Trey Lance development process. And because everybody's talking about the QB powers and I know we got a lot of guys that, it wasn't QB power, it was a triple option or whatever the case was. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. The problem is that you're putting him in harm's way. And I know Juice says that it's a flip of a coin and all that kind of nonsense. The reality is the more you put your guy in harm's way, the larger the chances are that he's going to get hurt. Like if you're putting him, if he's able to take hits, Trey has proven that he's not a runner like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to run over people instead of getting away from those hits. So why?
Yep.
I mean, at what point do you see that maybe I should stop doing this exact thing and maybe get him to the outside, whatever the case is, but maybe I should focus more on his passing. And I don't understand how he's supposed to develop as a passer and he's not passing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to run him. You want to run him in triple options. Like, how is he supposed to develop as a passer if you're not going to let him be a passer? But the unique take that I have on this whole situation is that what if Shanny, this was the plan all along? What if this was the plan all along is for Trey to be another running back, and it's like just a version of the Wildcat? And that's what Shanny really envisioned in when he saw Trey, and that he would just have him for the occasional shot play. What if that was the plan all along? And the only reason, because if you think about it, he did the same thing with RG3. Like when he was offensive coordinator for Washington, people are saying that, he doesn't trust Trey as a passer. But what if you heard him at the podium? He says, well, that's just normal play in the NFL, even though he's running him at a 32% clip compared to it, which is a higher percentage than any quarterback in the history. Like, so what if that's the plan? What if that was the plan? And that the only reason why he lets Jimmy throw is because Jimmy can't run.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why Matt Ryan, he didn't run that kind of offense with Matt Ryan's, because Matt Ryan can't run. Brian Hoyer can't run. CJ Beathard can't run. And Kirk Cousins can't run. Like, so what if that's the plan? And that's what the offense that he wants to run. And we're not going to get a chance to see this until next season. But if he starts doing the same stuff again, I'm a full believer that was the plan to begin with. That he wanted to relive bring back the triple option and run the triple option in the pros. And that's what he envisions. I know it's crazy to think, and I think that's why people look at this situation and they think, well, it can't be that. It can't be that. I know I can hear the people saying it now. You're insane. Like, no coach in their right mind would do that. But think about Shanny's ego. Think about that. How much this guy never does what we think he's going to do.
Exactly.
Never does what we want him to do. I don't think that anybody can really understand the depths of this guy's ego and what he really wants to do. And I think he has just a big enough ego to say, I don't care what the conventional wisdom is about this subject. I'm going to run him. And damn the critics. I know it's been a long enough time away from RG3 for people to not really remember it, even though that's not true.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of what I think about it right now. And I know a lot of people are saying I'm crazy, and we won't know until next season. But that's what I think about his development. I think that might be exactly what he wants Trey to be.
It's possible. It's possible. Like, listen, like, Kyle never does the obvious thing, and never does what we expect him to do or want him to do. Here's my whole thing on this, and you kind of touched on it at the very beginning. People keep saying it's football. It's a freak play. It happens. He can get injured on any play. He can get injured in the pocket. He can get injured doing this. The point is, and it's really common sense, the more you run your quarterback up the middle directly into linebackers, you increase the probability that he's going to get injured, and that is the point. And how long do you plan on seeing that work? Because this was week 2. So week 1, I gave him a bit of a pass because I was like, okay, it's a monsoon. I understand. Trey has athletic ability. You don't want him slinging the rock out there. I get it. You're playing on a literal slip and slide. But when you're in week 2, what was it, like 2nd and 8? We were running all over the Seahawks already. It was pretty apparent we were going to dog walk that team. You didn't need Trey Lance to be a running back. In fact, I should have mentioned that earlier. Kyle's out 3 running backs now this Sunday because that's exactly what Trey Lance was the first couple weeks this year.
Yeah,
I know he had some throws in the Chicago game, but let's be real. He had 3 carries in the first quarter. How many would have he had the rest of the game?
exactly.
And people say, well, it sets up the pass, so he would run later. You don't need to do that, though. You have a good running game with your running backs. If you can succeed offensively with Jimmy Garoppolo as a quarterback, as limited as a passer as he is, he's not even a threat to be mobile. He's not really a threat to push the ball downfield. He's not really a threat to accurately place the ball outside the numbers. And you're still able to have a successful rushing attack with him for years. So why do you need to use the quarterback to run the ball for what, like 3 or 4 yard gains? What people don't understand, or maybe they do understand, but just want to cape for Kyle. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Trey Lance was going to lead this team in carries. He was going to lead this team in carries this season. That's what people don't realize. And it's so blatantly obvious. Maybe it would have been close with Mitchell, but at the end of the day, I just say Mitchell's probably going to miss some games due to injury. And Trey Lance was going to end up leading this team in carries if this continued. I saw the first game in Arizona. And that, in fact, I remember I was in a space with Pinor, actually, and I like that Pinor brings this point up. Because Pinor, I was in a space with you in the offseason, and I said one of my number one concerns about Trey was he does not slide. He doesn't protect himself. And I remember Pinor saying, well, Josh Allen doesn't slide. And this is what I was alluding to. And Kyle tries to use a cop-out of, well, look at the Bills. They do this all the time, basically using Josh Allen because he's a big, physical, athletic quarterback who runs. But the point of that, they're 2 different bodies. They're 2 completely different human beings. And guess what? Josh Allen's going to get hurt at some point doing that too. I guarantee you it's going to happen. It just hasn't happened yet.
Exactly.
And when you're running in between tackles, like what you said, Trey's not the most, I want to say, determined runner. Like he's not decisive. That's the word. He's not decisive.
Yes.
When he runs, he looks really decisive. Like it looks like he doesn't know which way to turn. Like he's trying to juke a guy out, but he doesn't know if he should go left or right. He's really hesitant when he's running. He's not like a Kaepernick. When Kaepernick ran that read option, he hit a gap on the outside edge and he flew down.
He just ran. Like,
Exactly.
And there was no juking and like all that stuff. He would just get to top speed as quick as he could and try to run through arm tackles.
Exactly. And here's the thing too. People are now blaming Trey because they say, well, he doesn't slide. He needs to protect himself better. Dude, I don't give a shit. If you're running directly into the linebackers, a freak play is going to happen. Even if you slide, someone's going to get a late hit on you. Like, remember when Alex Smith got hurt? He was running. This is before Kaepernick started. It was against the Rams. I was there at the stick. Alex Smith, I think he was scrambling somewhere on the left side, and he slid, but a defender came in flying because momentum, or whether it was late or not, hit him in the back of the head, concussion, and that's how Kaepernick came in the next week. Yeah. There's still freak plays that can happen even if you try to protect yourself. And what you should know as a coach, putting your player in the best position to succeed, watch his college tape. Did this dude ever slide? This dude always tried to truck linebackers against D2.
He told you.
And he told you. And he told you he
like
never
slid. He doesn't slide.
When he slid against Green Bay, I was like, oh, wow, Trey Lance just slid. And he said, like, yeah, I've never slid in my life. Well, if honestly, this dude has literally said he's never slid in his life, maybe you shouldn't put him in a situation where you're counting on him to do something that he just doesn't have the tendency to do yet. He doesn't have that discipline built up yet. So therefore, you're putting him in a position where he's just in harm's way.
And honestly, like just to make a quick point, look at almost all of Trey Lance's runs.
Mm-hmm.
There. If you look at all of them, he's always trying to get the first down because if he doesn't get the first down, then they're kicking. Yep. And so if he slides every time and he doesn't get the first down, like, I mean, what then? Like, then we would be talking about that he doesn't want it enough. Or what would the narrative be at that point? Like, because then he's getting down because he's protecting himself. But then I feel like people would say, oh, he could have gone for that first down.
He's a big physical guy. He could have fought for it. That's exactly what people would say. But
yes,
with that whole running Trey Lance thing, I don't want to see that continue at the rate that it was going. Like, I don't mind using Trey Lance's mobility. I understand that. And I was telling people after the first week, like, he is a mobile quarterback. He is going to run. But do it when it's necessary or when it makes sense. It doesn't make sense on a 2nd and 8 against the Seattle Seahawks in week 2. I'll tell you, I was there. The weather was on and off, but it was sunny. Like, there were times where I was beaming on that side with the sun. You didn't need to be running the quarterback in that situation at all. There was no point in doing that. And there a few other things with the Trey Lance stuff, and this is going to be the biggest topic probably today other than the preview. It just shows you don't have any faith in him as a passer. And I don't understand this, because how much better of a passer is Jimmy G than Trey Lance? Because people say, well, he was inaccurate in camp. He struggles with the short intermediate throws. He struggles down the middle. I just saw him in the Chicago game in the rain toss dimes, the throw to Ray McLeod, stepping up, maneuvering in the pocket to hit Brandon Ayuk on the deep crosser, hitting Jawan Jennings down the sideline. I saw him hit really good throws in horrible conditions. Why can't he do that in pretty normal conditions at home on a consistent basis? And like you said, how does he develop? Like, did you trade up to number 3 to get someone to just be Taysom Hill? Like, seriously, like what are we doing here? At that point, just trade for Taysom Hill if you want to dynamic.
I was going to say, you could have traded for Taysom Hill for much less than you got Trey Lance for.
Why don't you just do something like that at that point? Like, that's where I don't understand the development process. And say what you want about Shanahan and all, the whole regime. They've butchered this development process. This is why, and I understand why they wanted to sit him, but this is why the right thing to do was to play him last year. If you played him last year, he would be a year ahead of where he was now in whatever the hell he was developing. Maybe they're developing as a running back. I don't know. Whatever the hell they were trying to develop him as this year, whatever that was, he'd be a year ahead. And you'd have year 2. Now you're going to have to wait till year 3 just to see what you might start to have. Just to start to see it. We have no idea at this point. They've butchered that situation. And it's just kind of wasting a rookie contract at this point. And you have aging veterans, and you're not going to keep Jimmy G around. I don't understand why they use him this way. I don't understand why they don't want to give him the room to grow. If you're afraid to give a quarterback who's practically a rookie the room to grow, the room to make mistakes, you should have just traded for Kirk Cousins. Yeah. At that point, you should have just paid him, because that would have been an upgrade for Jimmy G. You wouldn't have to wait to see him go through growing pains. You know what you have, and you have a veteran quarterback, and you don't need to develop him. I don't understand. And listen, I'm not going to say some people think Kyle didn't want Trey. I think he wanted Trey, which is what confuses me more. I think maybe he does have this overly conservative mindset, not just with the way that he calls games. Maybe he's just trying to be overly protective of his rookie quarterback. When has he really developed a mobile quarterback straight from the draft? When has he done that?
RG3.
And how did that go? Like, we all saw how that went too. Now, he was forced on them, but still, that didn't go very well. Highly Fair, what's up, man? He said, "Let's ride." Oh my God!
Hey, shout to everybody in the chat. Like, I can't really see any of it, but yeah, like, shout to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, and Highly just brought up a good point. Like, how does he develop now with year 3 and no significant amount of starts? Like, I thought Trey was the guy who would take about 3 years. We're gonna have to wait till like year 6. Like, is that what we're talking about now? Good thing he's young, but is that what we're gonna have to do? Is wait till he's like 27 years old to see if he's gonna pan out or not? That's a terrible situation to be in. Pioneer said he could have been 2 years of experience after this season, and they would focus on the passing game. And I think they should have been doing it anyways. And it sucks, because I read a story earlier today. Jeff Wilson was saying how breakout game was right around the corner. Like, Trey was ready himself to prove doubters wrong. He heard all the noise and he was ready, and then it was just taken away from him. And I just hate that. So we're going to have a lot more to talk about when it comes to the Shanahan stuff with Trey Lance. Obviously, that's never going to go away. But it's revenge tour season 3, and it is what it is. But here we are. I just hope that they next year just decide to let him loose a little bit, Let him be a passer. Let him make mistakes. Jimmy's going to make mistakes. So who cares if Trey makes mistakes? He's not a 5-year veteran in the system. Now,
yeah.
Let's get into the rest of the season, and then we'll get into some bold predictions and score predictions for the game, and then we'll wrap up. How do you see this season panning out? What do you think this team can accomplish? How far can they go? And how does Jimmy G being under center change the way you saw this season going before week 1?
What was the first question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So how do you see this season going for the Niners? How far do you think they can get?
Okay. So I think that, I think we're going to get to the playoffs. I think undoubtedly we're going to get to the playoffs as long as Jimmy doesn't get hurt, because this is the thing that people forget too. Oh, yes. Jimmy took over. It's week 2.
Yep.
We got a long way to go. And Jimmy gets hurt every year. He may not always miss a bunch of games, but he always gets hurt. And all we can hope is that he does not get any seriously injured. But as long as he doesn't get seriously injured to where he's missing more than maybe a game or two, I see this team going to the playoffs. And then once the playoffs hit, it's anybody's game. I'm a true believer in that. This era of NFL, it's all about matchups. So you can, for people to sit there and predict Super Bowls and all that kind of stuff, I just don't. I never like to predict Super Bowls, because once you get to the playoffs, everything resets, and then it's all about the matchup. And then you could face a really bad matchup in the first round. So yeah, I just think that they're going to go to the playoffs. And what was the second question?
Yeah, what was your view before the Trey injury compared to now, and how the season goes? How does Jimmy?
I thought that they were going to the playoffs then.
Impact? Yeah,
I thought they were going to go to the playoffs then. Now, did I know? No, okay. I don't call. Like I said, I don't call for Super Bowls because like I said, it's a matchup game at that point, and we don't know what Trey. We didn't know what Trey was going to look like, but like I said, if they were going to play the offense like I don't care. I don't care if Trey didn't get hurt. I don't like that offense at all. Of just running him and doing the triple option stuff. I just don't. I don't necessarily like it. And I don't know. I don't know that it was sustainable, if that makes any sense. So, but I still think that they make the playoffs, because I think that Trey was talented enough. If he could just give us Texan game vibes the whole season, that would have been enough to get us to the playoffs. With this defense is crazy. So I don't think that he was playing any worse than Jimmy was last year. And there was no reason to believe that he would not have been able to give them enough to get them to the playoffs.
Definitely. No, I agree. This was my prediction before the season started. So I thought, I looked at the upgrades on the roster. I looked how we got a number 1 corner. I looked at, Trey's ability to spread the ball around. I just thought, with the weakness of the NFC from contenders last year, how they kind of downgraded, I felt like we were so close last year, we can get to the Super Bowl this year. And I thought we'd probably face the Bills and we'd probably lose, until I saw proof. What I told people I needed to see first was I needed to see if Trey makes throws in certain moments when it matters most throughout the season.
Yeah.
If he had done that, I maybe would have shifted my prediction a little bit to say, the Niners could probably pull that off. Now I'm at the point where I still believe they can get to the Super Bowl, just because they still were so close last year. And I do think this team is a significant upgrade with Travarius Ward and Hufanga, who is the real deal. I mean, this dude looks like he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year if he continues this. But I'm at the point where now, if we were to face someone like the Bills, if it were someone like Josh Allen that they go up against, just that quarterback difference like it was in the NFC Championship, there's no way they overcome that. There's no way you can overcome some sort of matchup with a quarterback like a Josh Allen or a Pat Mahomes when Jimmy G is your starter, unless the defense does what they did to Aaron Rodgers in the divisional game last year. That's the only way it can happen. And even that was like, you can't count on that to happen again. Like that was really
Yeah.
rare. You're going to shut down the MVP and the best receiver in football probably at home to one offensive touchdown. So that's how I see the season going. I think they can still be really successful. My main thing is going to be this defense. I think, and I said right before the season, I said in August, like early August, I said this defense is going to be number one. And people jolted me for it because, we have a tough schedule. We play some tough opponents. Well, statistically, they're pretty much number one right now. And I know that we only played the Seahawks and the Bears, but at the end of the day, a dominant defense, you should be up in that area of the rankings if you're truly dominant when you're playing inferior teams. So to me, they're just doing their job. But this Sunday will be a really good test. It's going to be a good way to see how we handle a quarterback who's more experienced, obviously much better than the last two we played, obviously a better running game. And I just think more talent on defense also. I also don't know if Patrick Surtain is going to play, though. I think he was banged up also.
Yeah, he didn't practice either. Like, I don't think he's playing. Like,
Yeah.
But Kyle doesn't target, like, he doesn't target defensive players like that. Like, so it doesn't really matter that, like, I don't think corners actually matter against Kyle. Like, because he doesn't like to. He's not going to pass that. He's not going to be chucking the ball around. Like,
No.
so it's just going to be running. He's going to try and run it 35, 40 times, and then Jimmy will get in where he fits in. But I agree with you, like that they can get to the Super Bowl, and the difference between this year and last year is that I'm really intrigued because Jimmy talked about playing free, and and just kind of slinging it around. If that's the case, I don't care if he's throwing picks.
Yeah.
Just the threat of that happening, is going to be is going to be enough to loosen up that front seven to get the running game going. Like, because Kyle's gonna scheme some guys wide open. Jimmy's gonna miss some throws. But just the threat of him throwing it deep is going to get teams out of what they want to do. And so it's entirely possible. But like I said, I just want them to get to the playoffs every year. That's all I want for my team, is to get to the playoffs. And let's see what happens when we get there, because all that matters at that point is how healthy you are as a team and how and what the matchup is.
Yeah. And like Piner said, they got to cash out on this year, man, because DeMeco Ryans is so going to get a head coaching job offer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
oh,
next
my
year,
gosh.
next year, we probably got, what's his name coming back?
Vic Fangio. I'm hoping that is the replacement. If we must replace DeMeco, I'm hoping that that's who it is. But one thing, Piner brought up Jimmy Ward. That's another thing about this defense. We haven't even seen Jimmy Ward or Jason Verret get in the mix yet. And I don't know how that they would use Jason Verret. I do know for a fact, though, if Emmanuel Moseley had to miss a couple games, it feels way better playing Jason Verret than it does Josh Norman for a couple weeks. Yeah. And that's what we had to do last year.
Real quick, so I talked with Andrew Pasquini about this on my show earlier this week, and we talked about Jason Verret. And the thing about it is that that they're not going to run him out as the slot. Right. I think that they're only going to use him when teams try to go 4 wide. And and Andrew mentioned that specifically is that that's probably how they're going to use him, because they're not going to use him on he's not better than Travarius Ward. They're not going to put him in there to instead of Travarius Ward. They're not going to take Emmanuel Moseley off the field. And they don't want to put him in the slot because of the physical nature that the slot, that you have to be as a slot at this point. And he's going to have to help in the run game. So, I think that they just use him as, when it's obvious passing downs and when teams run out like that with empty sets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's going to be interesting. What it definitely is great depth. That is depth we did not have last year. I think this is the best secondary that the Niners have had in a really, really long time. I think it's even better than the Harbaugh days. I mean, maybe the safeties. I mean, Deshaun Goltz and Dante Whitner were something different. Terrell Brown was pretty underrated. Carlos Rogers. But this is a deep secondary. And
people forget about Lenore, too.
Lenore's there.
Lenore looks good
Ambry Thomas.
in the offseason.
Ambry Thomas
Lenore
was our
looks,
starter. He was our
yeah, for
starter
sure.
for a portion of the back end last year, and he's not even sniffing defensive snaps right now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's no like knock on Ambry Thomas, but it's just how much deeper this secondary is, and Hufanga being like the captain of that defense basically in the secondary right now. It's just incredible to see. He could have had 2 picks this year. He could have had back-to-back weeks, dropped the first one, but it went straight in the hands of Deshaun Gibson. Deshaun Gibson has even been one of the highest graded safeties in the NFL these last couple
How
weeks.
crazy is that? Like,
It's just insane. And I don't know how much of it is just how great the supporting cast is around them. That's probably what it is. But
yeah,
to see Hufanga flying around everywhere, like this dude looks like he's the real deal. I didn't expect it. I do think that he's going to be challenged in coverage more by quarterbacks, but I feel like he's just going to be able to step up. I think that the depth of defense around the safeties with the front 7, the pass rush, Trevarius and Emmanuel Mosley, I think it just takes so much pressure off the safeties to have to worry so much in coverage. I feel like, when you barely have time to throw, you can't really get to that level of the defense on a consistent basis. The Niners have been getting pressure a ridiculous amount, like at a ridiculous rate. And teams are still trying to double Nick Bosa. And you look at the way Samson Ebukam's playing now. Man, I was bringing him up as like, do you trade this guy? I'm glad.
And Javon Kinlaw.
This dude is awesome.
And then Kinlaw is just destroying the middle.
Yes.
Like it's if anybody has been kind of a little bit of a disappointment to me, it's kind of been Armstead. Like he's been he's been getting doubled, like I've been noticing, but he's been kind of getting pushed around in that middle. And but Javon Kinlaw has been looking really good, but he's been getting a lot of one-on-ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tanya brought this up. Banks and Burford have been doing pretty good. They've been steady.
Banks is looking like he's got that same Burford nastiness to him, and just kind of hitting whatever's close by him.
Yeah, if they can remain consistent, I think they're going to be fine. Like I said, I think they have a really good shot this year. But let's dive into the final portion here, and then we'll wrap up. So
for sure,
give me any bold predictions you have for Sunday night's game, and then give me your score prediction.
All right. So I guess my bold prediction is that the 49ers have 3 interceptions and 5 sacks in this game.
Ooh.
That's my bold prediction. And my prediction for the score is going to be 20-10.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's not going to be let Russ cook. It's going to be cook Russ, or Russ is cooked. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, like Russ is, exactly. Like Peking duck.
I have no complaints about that. They ripped the monkey off their back with the Seahawks and just beating the heck out of them last week. You got to do the same thing with Russell Wilson, man.
Exactly.
16-4 in his career. That's just crazy against the Niners. But here's my bold prediction. So I'm not going to say 3, but I will say that I think the Niners will have at least 2 turnovers that they force. I think they're going to take the ball away at least twice. However, if it's a fumble or if it's a pick, whatever it is, I do think that they're also going to win the rushing yard battle. I think it's going to be truly who can run the ball better and control the pace of the game. I think the Niners are going to be able to do that. I think Shanahan is going to get creative without 3 running backs, the third being Trey Lance, and he's going to be using Deebo Samuel quite a bit. And I have 49ers 27-21. Just do not put yourself in a spot where you have to put the game in the hands of Jimmy G. If it gets in that situation, I'm automatically going to just prepare my next show for talking about how we're going to have to talk about this loss. But that's the thing, though. When people talk about Jimmy G, slinging it, let Jimmy cook. Here's why I'm actually for it. I'm going to throw in why I'm actually all for it. If he does, right, and it's successful, great. Maybe we increase our chances of winning a Super Bowl. I just want number 6. But if it doesn't work out, let the evidence just show on film who the dude is. So I'm honestly all for it either way. If Jimmy wants to cook, let him at this point.
That's my thing, is just let the guy go out there and do whatever he sees fit. And I mean, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, what do you have to lose at this point? I feel like you're playing with house money. Your main quarterback, your starting quarterback went down. Jimmy's a backup. So like just go you should just be going balls to the wall, and then if anybody says anything, you'd be like, well, my starting quarterback went down. How many teams do anything when their starting quarterback goes down?
You're banking on a Nick Foles situation to happen right now, which is not, and Nick Foles balled out in that Super Bowl. So,
and it didn't happen at the beginning of the year. He didn't get it at the beginning of the year. He got it much later in the season.
Exactly. So Tanya said she thinks that the Niners defense is going to stop Williams in the running game, even though she has him on fantasy. Yeah, no, our defense is
Tanya
dominant.
knows ball.
Tanya does know ball. Dan Graziano, I think, said it on TV this morning. I turned on TV, and it's really funny because I tweeted this, and then all the Jimmy Truthers just flooded my mentions, and it got super annoying, as if I said it. But he basically said the Niners are exactly who they've been the last 4 to 5 years with Jimmy G. They're just good enough to not win the Super Bowl. So at this point, if Jimmy wants to cook, if it benefits them and gets them over the hump, fine. If not, it doesn't change anything. Just good enough to not win the Super Bowl. It's exactly what we have been. That is the truth. So
exactly.
We'll see. I do still think we have a really good shot. I think this is a really loaded roster. We got to make sure we get the most out of it anyways. Hopefully Jimmy can at least put together his second healthy full season. The first one since 2019. If he can, that gives us a good shot. I do not want to get to a situation where we get Purdy and then it's a Nick Mullins situation and then we get Ben Kurt starting a game. I definitely don't want to get a situation like that.
Yeah, no.
But Peter, thanks for joining the show, man. I know you're at work, so thanks for being flexible, doing it from the car. You're putting in that work. And tell us one more time, where can everybody find you on the socials?
Hey, I appreciate you having me on today, Chris. And everybody can find me on the Niner Fanatic Podcast on YouTube. I'm on Twitter under Peter Lucas 8, Instagram it's True54, and then honestly I don't know what my TikTok is, but you could probably look it up by Peter Lucas. and then of course you can find me on all of your audio wherever you get your audio podcasts. I'm on all of them. So just wherever you can get it, just go get it.
That's awesome. By the way, guys, if you were entertained tonight, Peter Lucas is the first person to bring me on as a guest for any Niners show. So if you're entertained tonight, he helped me get here. So therefore, you're welcome.
And I told everybody, and I told everybody then that this guy was going places at that point. So once you make it and you're over there with Emmanuel Alcho and all those guys, I better get a shout out. That's all I know.
Yeah. There's some guys I don't want to be around, to be honest. But if you guys are watching, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like this video. I'm literally 2 subscribers away from hitting 100. Once we hit 100, the next show we'll do after that, I'm going to have everyone that tunes in and is subscribed get a chance to win a raffle for a free Nick Bosa jersey. I'm just going to have it ordered in your size and ship it directly to you. So make sure you're subscribing if you aren't subscribed already. Also, my articles are in my link tree and my Twitter, which is in my handle. So make sure you can go there if you want to check anything out. I'll put the audio out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. But Peter, I know you're at work, so I'm going to let you get to it. Thanks for tuning in.
Hey,
everybody
make sure you mention Last Man Standing.
Oh, and Last Man Standing. I'm going to upload the video. We did our picks for this week.
Yeah,
and I'm going to be
Niner
the top
Sickness.
dog. Yeah, exactly. Make sure you follow Niner Sickness. Absolutely. And I will definitely have the best winning percentage by the end of the year. I can guarantee it. And if I don't,
it's got to be better than mine.
Well, damn it. I'll switch up like a lot of people do. There's a lot of flip-flopping people on Twitter. So
exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pynor. Now we're closer. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, Peter. Go Niners this
brother.
weekend, baby.
Wide open, touchdown, 49ers. And to Draymond. Hurry. Watch Stafford go deep, and Rodgers were able to do week 3 in that matchup. Toss to Jones, and big middle linebacker Fred Warner made the stop.